Welcome, beautiful viewers of James Carpenter Country Living. Today's video will feature a handcrafted toy gun for my grandson's birthday. When I was his age, I got my first BB gun. This toy will be much better and much safer. Something he can enjoy without worry. I start by outlining the toy gun shape on the wood. This first step brings the idea to life right on the board. I'll use the table saw for the open straight cuts. After that, I'll follow up with the jigsaw for the curves. The table saw cuts went a little too deep, leaving a groove. Mistakes happen in woodworking, but there are also chances to improvise and fix. I'll fill and sand this spot later. Toy guns have been part of childhood for more than a century. From simple tin pop guns to the iconic Red Ryder BB gun of the mid-1900s, these toys carry stories of adventure. Today, I'm honoring that history by making something safe, simple, and built with love. With the rough shape cut, I sand every edge smooth, rounding the corners so little hands can hold it safely. With the outline marked and the first cuts made on the table saw, I ran into a little challenge. My plan was to switch over to the jigsaw for the curves, but as it turns out, the blade on my jigsaw is just too short for this project. That's the way it goes sometimes in woodworking. You think you've got the right tool, only to find it doesn't quite fit the task. Rather than let that slow me down, I reached for a good old-fashioned handsaw. There's something special about working with a hand tool. It might take a little more muscle and a few extra minutes, but it gives you a closer connection to the wood and the project itself. Each stroke of the saw feels steady and deliberate, as if I'm shaping this toy one line at a time with care and patience. This is a reminder I like to share. Not every project goes exactly as planned, and that's okay. In fact, the little adjustments are often what make the story of a build worth telling. By the time these cuts are done, I'll have not only the shape of the toy gun, but also a lesson in adapting and carrying on. With the shape cut out, it's time to start smoothing those rough edges. The oscillating spindle sander makes quick work of rounding the stock, and I have to admit it feels good to see the toy really starting to take form. The curves soften, the corners disappear, and the piece begins to look more like something meant for little hands. But woodworking always has its surprises. Partway through sanding, I noticed the sandpaper sleeve creeping upward during the operation. At first I thought it was just me pushing too hard, but then I realized the problem wasn't pressure at all, it was setup. And this tool is still new to me, and I didn't know it requires a fender washer to hold the sleeve securely in place. Without it, the sandpaper simply rides up the spindle. Well, it's one of those live and learn moments. Every new tool has its quirks, and sometimes you don't find them until you're right in the middle of a project. Once I figured it out, the solution was simple, and now the sander works just the way it should. That's the beauty of shop time. You don't just build projects, you build experience. As we approach the final shape, it's time to give the toy some polish. I bring out the edger and carefully run it along the top edge, cleaning up the lines and giving the piece a crisp, finished feel. Each pass removes just a whisper of wood, but those little details make all the difference. A clean edge doesn't just look better, it feels better in your hands, especially when this toy is meant for a child to hold and play with. With the edges smoothed, the next step is the planer. This is the part I've been eager to get to. The planer doesn't just flatten and refine, it reveals the hidden beauty inside the wood. Every board has its own character, its own story written in the grain, and I can't wait to see what this piece holds. As the planer cuts, the raw surface gives way to a pattern of swirls and streaks that will be a key part of the toy's final look. There's always a moment of anticipation when you run a board through the planer. You don't know exactly what the grain will reveal until it's there before your eyes, and that's one of the true joys of woodworking. It's like unwrapping a gift that nature tucked away years ago, waiting for the right hands and the right project to bring it to light. With the edges crisp and the grain beginning to show, it's time to move on to the finer shaping. The right angle disc air sander is up next. This tool removes material quickly, and I like how it lets me shape the stock just the way I want it. The power in that little machine means I need to keep a steady hand. A few seconds too long in one spot and you've taken off more than you planned. Still, it's the kind of tool that rewards patience, turning rough cuts into clean contours. Once the heavy work is done, running my hand across the wood, I can already imagine my grandson holding it, the surface soft and comfortable, ready for play. There's something satisfying about this stage. The toy is no longer just a cutout shape. It's becoming something finished, something that looks and feels like it was meant to be. As I work through the sanding, the saw blade burn marks are slowly disappearing. With each pass, the surface gets smoother and the shape becomes clearer. I know the feel of a rifle and the profile of a gun, and this little toy is beginning to echo those familiar lines. It's still just wood in my hands, but it's taking on a form that speaks to generations of design. That design has meaning far beyond the workshop. Around the world, the overwhelming majority of countries permit some form of civilian gun ownership, though the rules and restrictions vary widely. Here in the United States, we have the highest ratio of guns to civilians, but we're not alone in the tradition. Many other nations have their own long histories with firearms, often rooted in sport shooting, hunting, or sometimes self-defense. For this project, though, I'm not building a weapon. I'm building a memory, a keepsake. Once the heavy work is done, I switch to the random orbit palm sander. This is where the piece really starts to feel refined. The palm sander smooths away the high spots, erases the little ridges left from earlier steps, and creates a surface that feels good to the touch. Running my hand across the wood, I can already imagine my grandson holding it, the surface soft and comfortable, ready for play. There's something satisfying about this stage. The toy is no longer just a cutout shape. It's becoming something finished, something that looks and feels like it was meant to be. I remembered my friend's advice as I worked. Keep the router moving at a steady pace. It's tempting to pause when you want precision, but slowing down too much lets heat build up on the bit. The result Burn marks on the wood and a dull cutter. That's a lesson learned. Steady hands and a smooth rhythm make all the difference. With the half-moon groove cut and the barrel resting in its place, I can almost see the toy rifle come to life on the bench. The dry fit confirmed what I was hoping for. Everything lined up with a clean, crisp channel. Once the groove looked true, I ran a thin bead of glue down its center. Not too much, just enough to hold without dripping. Sliding the barrel into place was a satisfying moment, like a puzzle piece finally clicking home. A quick wipe with a rag took care of the excess glue, and then I set a pair of clamps with padded jaws, just snug enough to secure without bruising the stock. I marked the two little blocks and trimmed them to fit the groove exactly, then removed them for shaping. One block I left square for a snug rear stop. The other I took to the spindle sander and carefully rounded to mirror the contour of the stock. I kept the block moving against the drum, checking the profile often so I didn't over-roll it. The aim was a gentle complementary curve that would disappear into the lines of the gun once glued. With both blocks test fit dry, I gave the mating surfaces a light scuff to help the glue bite, applied a thin coat, and pressed them into the groove. A small clamp held the square stop. I wiped away squeeze out, then resighted the whole length to be sure the barrel and new blocks stayed true. Once everything cured, I will blend the transitions with the spindle sander and a card or block sandpaper, then feather the edges with a random orbit to make the join read as one continuous piece. Small parts, big difference. That's the secret. I made a trigger guard out of an electrical strap. I cut it down in width and polished it on a wire wheel. For the trigger, I used a screw and hook. The rear sight is made from a corner bracket. I used a piece of metal that came from an electrical outlet cover and turned it into a safety. The final step is always the most rewarding, and in this case it's time to bring the wood to life. With the stock shaped, smoothed, and polished, I reached for the stain. There's something magical about this moment. The bare wood, though beautiful on its own, is waiting for its true character to emerge. I dipped the rag into the rich stain and pressed it gently against the grain. Instantly the pale surface transformed, the deep tones soaking in and revealing the hidden veins of the wood like a secret map that had been waiting for years to be uncovered. As I worked the rag across the stock, the gun seemed to take on a soul of its own. Every stroke deepened its rustic charm and highlighted the hours of care that went into shaping it. The smell of the stain lingered in the air, warm, earthy, and old-fashioned, like stepping into a workshop from a bygone era. With each pass, I wasn't just coloring the wood. I was sealing in the story of the toy, locking away both the effort and the memories that brought it to this point. When I set the piece aside to dry, I knew I was looking at more than just a toy gun. I was looking at a piece of handcrafted history glowing in the light. I hope you enjoyed coming along with me on this build as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. If you did, let me know down in the comments. I always love hearing your thoughts and experiences. Thank you so much for watching, for spending a little bit of your time here with me. Don't forget to hit that like button. It truly helps me out and keeps me inspired to keep creating and sharing more builds with you. Until next time, my friends, take care and happy building.